sea of tussock like this, lost in its golden uniformity. Tussock rolling over the foothills, rim the mountains like a shoreline, reaching to the edge of the sky, lion-flanked landscapes, wild and natural. Or are they? Walking through these vast lands, a curious thing happens. After a while, the eye passes over the glorious randomness of colour and form and hones in on the exceptions, the faint path made by a deer, the glint of water, and here a curious horizontal line across the face of the hillside. What is this? Clambering over the hills, following the tracks of sheep, avoiding the spiky Spaniards and the barred matagari, you get close to this wild land. It's full of water, smoothly running. A stream running across the hills, not down. A water race. This one, the extraordinary Mount Ida race, was hacked and shovelled from these hard lands between 1873 and 1877. Here, near its beginning at the north end of the Hawkdun Range, it sidles the hills at nearly 2,800 feet. Who built it? We don't really know. Men, presumably, looking for a bit of steady income away from the unreliable goldfields. With fundamental survey tools, they measured and calculated a line with a steady fall of 1 in 754. Not much. And with picks and shovels, they dug this bony land a yard wide by a yard deep. They sweated and shaped the snaking run of the race, designed to scoop water from mountain streams. Johnston's Creek, Manuka Creek, Big German Creek, Boundary Creek, Shepherd's Hut Creek, Healy's Creek. The names go on. And lower down, the water race loops around foothills, scooping water from Hills Creek, Wades Creek, Idaburn, Wedderburn, Uburn, and finally finishing in Home Gully on the far side of Naseby, a landscape named of the people and the landforms. After only 4 years of jarred shoulders, hunger, cold, a diet of sheep, bread and probably whiskey, living in tents, this incredible landscape feature, this aqueduct of the south was completed, and it started to feed liquid gold into the Naseby goldfields. And this race wasn't simply a channel carrying water. It's an intricate three-dimensional watercourse, like a braided river on steroids. Like here, where this race siphons down and under the creek, emerges at this side and is joined by more water scooped from higher up the creek. And the race isn't static either. In dry times, it can drop to a trickle. In wet periods, it can be so full it nearly spills over its banks. In summer, it's a welcome steady sparkle of moisture in a parched landscape. In winter, it often freezes over. It's a lifeline of water for sheep, a home for small fish, a refuge for ducks. So here we have the Mount Ida water race, 108 kilometres from the north end of the Hawkduns to the Naseby goldfields. And not, as many think, to sluice for gold, but for a far more mundane purpose, a sludge channel, to wash away the clay and shingle left over from the mining. Having created this extraordinary structure, it couldn't be left to look after itself. It required constant tending, shoring up the banks, digging out the channels, replacing shutters, opening and closing intakes as the streams rose and fell. Who did this? And how do they live on this harsh land where the weather dominates all? We don't know much about these people either, but the landscape holds stories. In this landscape, the trees tell you a lot. Here, an ancient struggling elder tree stands by the water race next to the remains of a house built of sod. This is likely to have been the home of one of 5 men or families stationed along the race, each looking after around 22 kilometres. Here, the evening light shows up the sod-walled enclosure around the house that may have contained a crop of potatoes or maybe a pig or two. High up in the foothills of the Hawkduns, there was stone. So this hut was more substantial and probably needed in the more extreme conditions. For 2 to 3 months of the worst of winter, they'd close the race, but come spring, the racemen would return. A seasonal migration that went on and on for maybe about 50 years. years. We know so little about their lives, and the landscape stories can be shy. Here is a rare and wonderful sight of mint alongside the water race. But I wonder if this was planted by a raceman who was heartily sick of mutton. The race initially supplied water to 135 miners, but after 50 years it was facing closure. Unlike many races which were abandoned, this one was taken over in the 1920s by Maniatoto farmers to irrigate their farms. Over time, the race was made just slightly more sophisticated. It was widened to the width you see here with machinery. And here at the Wedderburn Creek, it was replaced by a huge piped shortcut that siphons the water down and up to the far side, a distance of close on 1 kilometre in a 1 metre wide pipe. I wish you could hear the sound of the siphon as the water surges through, as I did as I took this photograph, hissing and blowing like a whale. So from delivering water to a sludge channel for gold, the Mount Ida race is now turning gold into green, if you can see in the distance there, dropping water off at points along its length to irrigate the farms of the Maniatoto. So what's the heritage here? Is it the race, or is it the way it's defined by the curves of the land? Is it the water, or the fact that it is filled from the melting of snows? Is it the historic facts, or is it the way the landscape quietly shares its stories of strength and survival? Heritage is all it is.